number 20 SMU beating number 18 Pitt and ruining their undefeated season by a 48-25 final score. Let's go over to the highest graded Mustangs in this victory, starting off with defensive tackle Jared Harrison Hunt at his 86.6. Offensive tackle P.J. Williams, 80.4. Ahmad Walker, the linebacker, 79.1. Cale Sanders Jr., the corner, at 78.4. Jafari Harvey, 76.3. And how about Kevin Jennings bouncing back big time with an 81.7 grade in that win. Pitt, their highest graded players, starting off with tight end Jake Overman, 80.3. Chief Borders, the edge defender, 78.8. Another edge defender, Jimmy Scott, 78.7. Then you got Kenny Johnson, wide receiver, to 68.8. Jason Collier Jr., the offensive guard, at 68.3. And Eli Holstein struggling out there with a 52.8 grade. Dawn, for you, what was the stat that told the story?
This is just about SMU getting out ahead early and staying out there and just keep running, man. I think SMU, we think of them as like spread out and high flying and everything Preston Stone did last year. And Kevin Jennings been fantastic. We've talked about him a lot. Great bounce back for him after probably the worst game of his entire life last week, right? Even though they got the win. And you saw when they don't turn the ball over 6 times, SMU's pretty darn good, right? But I think the big thing is they have balance. And you talk about in this first half, okay, SMU, 22 runs, 19 passes. They got out ahead. They got Pitt out of their game early, right? Because I don't think Pitt wants to rely as much on Eli Holstein as they had to in this game. Pitt in the first half ran 39 plays, and only 7 of them were design runs. So you're talking about one team had 145 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground in the first half, and the other team with Pitt and Desmond Reed had 37 yards. They got out ahead. They leaned on the run game. We talked about, what do you do against this Pat Narduzzi defense? Do you take your shots, or do you try to grind and out-physical them and figure out another way? SMU went with the latter. They ran the ball like crazy in the first half. They decided to make plays after the catch and hit quick hitters to the field side where there's a little bit less press coverage than the backside. Sometimes they'll still do it on both sides, but it's more so to the backside where you have that solo receiver a lot of times set up in trips, and on that trip side they'll be a little bit more off in traditional quarters. This was just Rhett Lashley, just a fantastic game plan all the way around. I mean, it's hard for really one stat to me to sum it up, because SMU just came out there with a better football team in this game.
It was not even close. Yeah, honestly, in the first half especially, it was over. This game was over at halftime. And Pitt did make a little bit of a comeback in the second half to make this look a little bit closer, but it was 31-3 at halftime. Like, this game was over at halftime. I said the stories, really the EPA per play splits in the first half compared to the other two teams. But SMU, .365 EPA per play in the first half, averaged 7.8 yards per play, 6.6 yards per carry, 9.7 yards per pass. Pitt, negative .193 EPA per play in the first half, 4.5 yards per play, 2.8 yards per carry, and 5.5 yards per pass. One offense in the first half got whatever they wanted. The other got stonewalled in this game. So really, again, like I said, this game was over at halftime, and SMU just came out immediately, and we thought, okay, well, how are they going to come out after that really shaky performance against Duke? They cleaned it all up, and they dominated Pitt in that first half.
Coach Lashley must have tore into him after that one.
They were running sprints up and down the stairs of the stadium.
They were doing ball security drills all week. They were making sure there was going to be no fumbles this week for sure. But no, they came out. They looked fantastic. And I'll tell you, I mean, SMU, with what we saw from Clemson, and now what we saw, obviously, the way they beat Pitt, and then there's some other contenders who kind of fell. SMU right now is probably the clear primary challenger to Miami, and they've got a favorable schedule the rest of the way. And I think we have to sit here and go, Miami and SMU have the inside track to the ACC. Obviously, they're the only 2 teams left undefeated in conference, but they also kind of just look like the 2 best teams.
They really do. And honestly, look at their schedule. SMU's got Boston College, at Virginia, and then Cal to close out the season. Clemson needs them to lose one of those 3 games. And even then, tiebreakers, I don't know what happens there. They're still tied with Clemson. If Clemson wins out as well.
It might be an issue it might be a common opponent issue depending on who they lose to, because SMU beat Louisville.
Yeah.
So SMU's got a very clear track, and obviously it'd be easier for them to just win their last 3 games and get there. But it sure feels like right now they're the second best team in the conference.
I would agree with that. Yeah. So Dawn, for you, though, what was the most impressive part of this SMU victory?
Tell you what, we were kind of jumping on this SMU offensive line early in the year, and they're getting better and better every single week. So their starting offensive line, all right, they didn't play the last 4 drives. They really didn't need to play much in the fourth quarter, right? Their starting offensive line had a 77.9 overall grade in this game. It might have been their best mark of the season. I got to fiddle with some things because they didn't play the whole game in this one. They did not allow a single pressure the entire game. Not their offensive line, not a single. Their starting O-line. I think there was like some backups the last 10, 12 snaps that came in, gave up a couple. Their starting O-line gave up 0 pressures in 3+ quarters.
And Narduzzi with that, all the blitz packages he sends.
Well,
it gets complicated with him.
They picked him up. They picked up every single one of them, and there was no. And in the run game, they were really good too. Logan Parr and those guys up front and their offensive line, they're really starting to figure it out. And again, part of having balance is having guys who can block, and they've got them right now. They're getting better every week, and they just dominated this football game.
Absolutely. And one guy who really benefited from having that offensive line be dominant was Brashard Smith, their running back. He is awesome, dude. He had 23 carries for $161 and 2 touchdowns, 5 carries of 10+ yards, 4 broken tackles. And also, as a receiver, he had 4 catches for 21 yards and a touchdown as well. So 3 total touchdowns for him, 182 yards total for Brashard Smith as well. There are so many amazing running backs in college football, and obviously we try to talk about as many as we can every single week. He has become one of the most underrated ones that we have in the nation right now, thanks to his ability as a rusher and a receiver. Pitt had no answers for him as a dual threat running back, and I think he was a former receiver in college.
Well, you could tell the toe drag catch on the touchdown that he had in this game. It was I saw that play, and I thought it was a receiver, and I was like, wait, that's Brashard. That's crazy. Like, no, he's super talented. He's having maybe the most like you mentioned, the most underrated year of any running back in the country. And he's really them working the rest of the offense off of him. It wasn't quite like that last year with SMU. They were a little more of straight drop back and kind of spread out. Them working through the run game through Brashard Smith and then building off of it with Kevin Jennings.
Yep.
That's really why their offense is succeeding right now. And again, why they're in such a great position in the ACC.